Among different types of relationships between one group of animals to another, the most devilish, insidious, and devastating is one of host-parasite relationship. What's a parasite? A parasite is an animal or a plant that lives upon or inside the body of another animal called host, derives benefit of all kinds, derives protection, nutrition, and of course performs reproduction in that being and gets all kinds of benefits without giving anything in return. In fact, it causes some kind of harm, whether the harm is caused by it or by its presence, or it does cause harm, it doesn't matter, but the harm is caused after all. Take the example of Plasmodium. It's a parasite, it's a protozoan, something like an amoeba. Amoeba lives an independent life, but this Plasmodium lives in mosquitoes, or it lives in human being. Mosquito being the secondary host, you can say, or according to some definition, it's a primary host because it performs reproduction, sexual reproduction in that being. And therefore, it may be called primary host, but it is deemed to be a secondary host. A primary host is man. When Plasmodium, that is sporozoite form of this Plasmodium, is introduced into the blood of man through the saliva of the a mosquito called Anopheles. It reaches the liver and it invades liver cells and starts dividing asexually by multiple fission and devastates the liver cell, breaks the liver cell, enters another liver cell, and of course does the same thing, reproduces. As a result, several liver cells are damaged, and after a while it leaves the liver and enters the blood, and in the blood it invades the red blood corpuscles and it begins to do the same thing, that is draws nutrition, then does asexual reproduction by multiple fission. The process goes on. Once it has reproduced itself into a large number of creatures, the RBC is ruptured, is damaged, and as it is released in the bloodstream again, some kind of substance which resembles a little bit the smell of pineapple and lemon is also oozed out in the blood. It invades other red blood cells. In this way, the process goes on. This is called erythrocytic cycle. Every time the red blood cell is ruptured, certain quantity of this limonene and pinoline substance is released in the blood, and this circulates in the blood. As a person who is suffering from malaria as a result of repeated cell division in the erythrocyte, the man suffers from the fever and shivers and then perspires. In the perspiration comes out these two substances, limonene and pinoline. And they have some smell, and this smell attracts the other mosquitoes. It serves as pheromone for them. They feel extremely happy to be able to bite the man who is already infected, who is suffering from malaria. See, the devil is contrivance. And when the mosquito comes and bites, of course, it gets all those, you can say, gametocytes, sort of one stage of Plasmodium enters into the mosquito's stomach because it sucks the blood. And then again, in the stomach of the mosquito, another life cycle begins, that's called sexual life cycle. And then after, as a result of that, some sporoblasts are produced and they are encysted and live on the outer surface of the gut of mosquito, and then finally the cyst ruptures, as a result of which the sporoblasts are released in the hemocoelomic fluid, and from there it migrates into the salivary gland and remains there to be transmitted to another person. In this way, the life cycle goes on in mosquito and also in human being. In human being, in the liver, in the red blood cells, in the mosquito, in the gut. See, the manner in which it perpetuates itself is really very devilish, causes harm to the person, damages red blood cells, and fever, recurrent fever occurring at the interval of 24 hours, 48 hours, 74 hours, 78 hours, 72 hours, depending upon the type of species. So, in this way, you find that this malarial fever perpetuates from one being to another, and the agent is the secondary host is Anopheles. Anopheles is a mosquito which sits in a way which is it looks as if it's diving because its hind limbs are larger than the forelimbs. So, it sits with kind of tilt. The body is bent downward a little bit, and we see the situation of a parasite, how it perpetuates itself.